Awesome. All right, welcome. Why don't you
Hi, thank you for having me.
introduce yourself to everyone and give us a little bit of background?
Okay, hi, I'm Joyce Sully, and I am an independently publishing author, and I write about witches. It feels like some sort of Writers Anonymous meeting.
So, so what's the name of your series of witches?
Okay, well, the piece that I've got available currently is called Wireless Mice and Washing Machines. And if that sounds oddly high tech for a story involving witches, you're entirely correct. That's sort of my weird take on witches is I really enjoy writing urban fantasy that is as ultra modern and even just a little futuristic as I can get it. I have a thing for science fiction under normal circumstances, and I love science as it manifests in things like consumer technology. And so, Wireless Mice and Washing Machines is about a witch for hire, Aida, who's just moved into town, and she is desperate to make herself useful and meet new people. But she's been having a bit of trouble. And a chance encounter and her thieving familiar allow her to meet Ben, who has a bit of a problem with his new household appliances. And so she has a new challenge and an opportunity to finally meet someone. So that's the story.
That
And
sounds amazing.
it involves angry washing machines and tiny robotic vacuums that I designed semi from scratch because why not? So it was a lot of fun to write, and I hope people enjoy it because it's, I think, a little different.
It sounds a little bit like a cross between that part of Beauty and the Beast where all of the household gadgets are dancing and like I don't know, Star Trek or something. It sounds awesome.
Well, if you want to talk about formative influences, you've got it right there. I love the idea of inanimate objects coming to life. It is one of my number one favorite things about fantasy and science fiction because really, what are robots but inanimate objects that can think and move around?
Yeah.
And fantasy is chock full of that sort of thing. So that's right in my sweet spot.
Awesome. We're gonna have lots of future conversations going in depth into that. I already can tell. Um,
Fantastic.
so so tell us a bit about like how does magic work in your world?
Okay, well, I'm what you would call a lapsed Wiccan, I suppose. So I have background in what I'd call modern magical practices, particularly herbalism and earth magic. And so that has shaped a lot of my approach to fantasy magic. A lot of times I will have characters using herbs and rocks, consulting planetary and elemental alignments, that sort of thing, to enhance and underline thread of natural magic. So
Mhm.
to go back to your Star Wars reference, there's sort of a sense that there's a force in the universe that has magical properties, but you've kind of got to figure out how to tap it. It's
Mhm.
like any other natural resource, but you've got to figure out how you're going to harness it. And so that's how I've ended up interpreting it in quite a few of my stories.
Cool. So what's a day in the life of a witch for you?
I usually have them as sort of the neighborhood advice column and handyman all rolled into one. I typically write stories about witches who are interested in helping people, either out of the goodness of their hearts or for profit or some combination of both. But I see the witch as having its origins in wise women and midwives and herbalists, the people who back in earlier times had figured out the truth of some of the folklore and knew how to heal things that people didn't. And so I see that as something that gets over into the more fantastical manifestation of witches is someone who has abilities and more importantly insight beyond the average person, that they're the quintessential outside observer, and they can see other people's problems and figure out innovative solutions. And the fact that they use magic to do it is in some ways secondary. It's more about that role of the person that you go to when you're desperate, when you
Mm-hmm.
don't know how else to solve your problem. And they will give you not necessarily a solution in a nice, tidy bow, so much as the tools. There's this element of being a teacher and an advisor rather
Okay.
than someone who just breezes in and fixes everything.
Yeah. I like that. It's sort of a little bit backwards too. Like if you read a lot of fantasy that has people who do magic who live in the real world, I think a lot of them, their justification for trying to keep their powers secret is exactly your reason why they don't keep them secret. You know, like oh, I don't want to have to fix everyone's little tiny problems, so I'm not going to tell anybody I have powers, but you're exactly the opposite. I like that. Awesome.
I think part of the thing for me is I tend to write either suburban or rural settings as opposed to big cities. So
Mhm.
in some way I manage that issue by controlling the population. You know, in a smaller community, there aren't going to be as many locals putting demand on witches. And that tends to be how I manage expectations in that sense. That was always something that frustrated me with a series like Harry Potter. You know, the secrecy of magic laws, they seem vastly unsustainable in a modern high-tech world.
Yeah.
I just saw someone talking about this online where it's like, well, you've got camera phones and YouTube and everything else where you can record anything at any moment. The idea that you could keep magic secret to me seems odd. So I tend to write stories where we haven't bothered to. Sometimes it can be interesting. Sometimes you can have the outsiders that are having to solve problems in secret, and that can be a lot of fun too. I mean, you can definitely take
Yeah.
it in multiple directions, but
Yeah.
the issue of everyone wanting a magical solution, you can play with that in a few different ways.
Well, and even if you had a big city, I mean, in the proportionally increased population, you would have proportionally more witches
Right.
per like square
Spreading the
foot,
problem out.
right? So you'd have more people to help. Um,
True. Yeah.
yeah. So so what's your favorite part uh about your witch character?
Aisha,
Yeah.
I love that she's an enormously positive person. She has a very bubbly and determined personality. Part of the thing is that she is able to interact with a lot of spirits inhabiting the world around us, including inanimate objects. So she's, in a way, my exact opposite because she is an intense extrovert.
Hmm.
She loves being surrounded by people, for a broad definition of people, and is always carrying on conversations with, lightning sprites that are powering the light fixtures in the house and, things like that. And so I enjoy writing her because she really believes in the good in the world and wants to find solutions that let everybody get what they need. And that's very much what the story is about. Is it's not a villain that needs to be defeated type situation. It's a problem that needs to be solved so that everyone is okay. And I like that sort of attitude.
Yeah. That sounds fun. Um, does she have a particular favorite sprite?
Well, her favorite is almost certainly going to be her familiar Jasper.
Okay.
He's a talking cat, as is traditional. There are only so many traditions that you can break in a given story. Come on, got to have a talking cat. And so he is very much her advisor. If she's going around helping other people, then what makes that possible is that Jasper always has her back. Sometimes in ways that she's not entirely comfortable with, like stealing things from the neighbors in order to set up a meet cute kind of situation. But he has her best interest in heart, and he's generally pretty clever. So he's definitely her favorite unusual creature to be dealing with.
Um, I completely forgot what I was going to say. Mind
That's okay.
blank. Lol. This happens to me sometimes. Um, so so where did you get, I guess you touched on this a little bit broadly, but was there any like specific thing or specific instant where you realized that you had a character and a story coming together? in your head. Does that make
You
sense?
know, yeah, the issue of inspiration can always be a little difficult because I typically end up with a couple disparate pieces in my head that at one
Yeah.
moment finally all click together and you go, oh, yes, okay, that'll work. So I had seen over on the shop for Make Magazine a kit actually for a little robot mouse thing that is light sensitive, and so it'll chase a flashlight beam type thing. And I saw it and
That's
thought, oh man,
awesome.
that's cute. And of course, I always have a thing for robotic vacuums like Roombas. And
Yeah.
I sort of in the back of my mind thought, well, it would be really cute to have a robotic vacuum system that is based around multiple little screen things that have a fairly small canister, but can self empty. And so they just kind of scurry around all the time. And so this robot plus mouse idea was sort of going in the back of my head. And I thought, okay, well, I could tell a story about that. And honestly, from there, it just kind of happened. I'm not really sure what the inspiration for Aisha was beyond just cute fashionista witch, which I thought would be a fun idea to play with.
Yeah. Yeah. Is she like a fashion snob a little bit? Like, does she have favorite brands and stuff?
She makes a lot of her own stuff, and it's not so much about
It's not about the
fashionable
brand.
looks. Yeah, not so much about the brand or traditional fashionable looks, so much as she really likes getting dressed up and looking cute. Uh, Mostly because I like the idea of thinking about her in all different little costumes. I always enjoyed the anime Cardcaptor Sakura when
Hmm.
it used to run on Saturday mornings when I was a kid. And her best friend, who has no magical powers herself, is her costume designer and is always making these different cute outfits that tend to have something to do with the power she's going to be manifesting in that episode. And I always thought that was adorable. I love costume design. And so even though it's really only showing up in a few sketches that I'm doing for my own reference, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, yes, lots of outfits all the time.
Yeah, we're gonna have more to talk about on that too, because I do fashion design.
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
think we're gonna be best friends.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. Um, so 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 what sorts of troubles happen? Like, what that are there times when the magic and the technology like work at cross purposes instead of working together? Or how does the magic and the tech integrate, I guess?
For me, part of it is that I like the idea that inanimate objects have personality. And so you have this cranky washing machine that is putting up an active fight. And everything that Aisha is doing, she's trying to use crystal pendulums and magical teas to increase her insight and all this sort of thing to get a sense of why the washing machine is upset. And it's given her a rough time. She's getting stray socks spat at her and nonsense like that. And so the magic is giving her clues here and there, but in the end, the thing that lets her figure it out is talking to people, making friends, being in tune with what's going on with other people, and sort of putting together the logical puzzle of it. In some
Okay.
ways, the magic is the tool, not the solution.
Okay. Um, so there's not like a time where magic causes something to break ever, and then she has to fix it by changing that.
Not in this story. Keep in mind, Wireless Mice and Washing Machine is the first short story of what will probably be multiple ones. So in
Yeah.
this first adventure, mostly her magic is helping, or at least not proving terribly effective, but not making matters worse. There
Okay.
will inevitably come a time when, of course, magic makes matters worse. Every tool typically does.
Yeah.
A hammer is great until you smash it on your thumb.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be instances where magic, for all its good intentions and ability, is going to be the wrong tool used at the wrong time in the wrong way, and you're going to get bigger explosions than you would get with almost anything else.
Yeah. So with the magic being so ordinary, sort of, I guess ordinary is a relative term, but like with her using magic to solve these problems and dealing with ordinary household gadgets, how does that, I guess, fit into a bigger set of cycles? So that's like a daily thing where she's helping people solve their little problems. Um, but are there things like special? Does she follow the Wiccan holiday, or does she follow your own version of it, or
For the
how does that
most part, when I'm writing fictional witches, it's secular magic. I don't get involved in building religion either based on real ones or, made up from scratch.
Okay.
I don't get into that much. For the most part, I see it as being a secular skill, and
Okay.
that's how I come at it.
So there's not like, I guess I'm not really thinking of it as uh a religious aspect. I'm more thinking of like, are there certain days or times of year when magic is stronger or acts different or things like that?
Well, almost inevitably, I end up introducing Halloween because, come on, it's Halloween.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. There's got to be a sense that magic fluctuates. If it's a resource like anything else, then of course there are dry times and times when it's richer than others, and so that impacts it impacts what you're trying to do in the same way that issues of weather or power outages can impact your life. If
Hmm.
this is something that you're using on a daily basis, that your job is based around, then even small fluctuations are going to cause anything from irritation to out and out danger.
Are there like earthquakes caused by magic? I don't know. Like
Well, I
that would
had
be
I hadn't
that
planned
just
any
occurred to
specifically, but
me.
now you come to mention
It
it.
just occurred to me. Like that would be really kind of probably traumatic, actually. If you had a really bad earthquake. Well, maybe not an earthquake specifically, but like something earthquake like. But that was magic related instead of tectonic related. I don't know. Um,
Sure. I mean, part of the thing is a question of scale. A lot of time I'm
right.
writing on a small scale, a couple of people. But if you think, okay, well, this is a world where magic exists and there are multiple witches, then sure, you can get enough of them together and start scaling up the power of the magic, which scales up what they can do for good or for ill.
Right.
And so yeah, of course, in a world where magic is possible, you always have the potential for amazing good and terrible disaster.
Yeah. So I guess what's your favorite part of her skill set that she can, which of her powers, I guess, is your favorite?
I think the thing that I enjoy most is that because she can talk to spirits inhabiting the house that she's living in, she can turn lights on and off without getting up. And I know that that's an incredibly trivial thing to like, but it's the
But it would
sort of
make
thing
life
where
so much easier.
exactly. And so the opening scene is I have her sitting in bed and she's just woken up after a late night of working on projects, and she doesn't want to get up and turn the lights off. And so she just asks the spirit that are involved in running the house to please do it for her. And they do, because she's cultivated a good relationship with them. And that's the sort of thing, if I can't have powers like telekinesis myself, I'd like to just be able to talk to someone who's around that can, because those sort of little conveniences I really enjoy. That's my idea of a great use of magic.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for sharing everything about your story and your witches and your world. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun, and we're definitely going to have to talk again.
We definitely will.